Hi, my name is Jeff Knox, and today I'd like to talk about something we don't hear much about, which is non-human rights. Most of us think that human rights are very important, and we might hope that those who disagree never come to power. Sadly, this isn't always the case, and to make matters worse, many who come to power don't do much by way of non-human rights in the same way they do for human rights. I hope to persuade you that many non-human animals aren't much different than us, and as such they should be treated as having many of the same rights we enjoy, such as the right to life and freedom to live in their natural habitat. My main focus will be on mostly cetaceans and non-human primates, since these groups are highly intelligent, have their own cultures, and demonstrate capacity for complex emotions and feelings. Cetaceans are a group of marine mammals that include dolphins, porpoises, and whales. It is probably safe to assume that most of us think humans are above all other animals. But all that makes us human is starting to be recognized in other animals as well. It's been there the whole time, but common human arrogance, perhaps the only true distinguishing factor between us and the rest of life on the planet. This arrogance has blinded us to the similarities between we humans and the cetaceans, as well as the other primates. A great deal of research has been conducted which supports these claims, and I will present some of it here in this speech. Now, let's begin by considering the intelligence of other animals. Cetaceans are highly intelligent and self-aware. Greg Miller wrote an article for Science magazine in 2010 where he describes work done by cognitive psychologist Diana Rice. Miller notes, Rice has been working with dolphins in aquariums for most of her life, and she says their social intelligence rivals that of the great apes. They can recognize themselves in a mirror, a feat that most animals fail at and a sign of self-awareness. They can understand complex gesture sentences from humans, and they can learn to poke an underwater keyboard to request toys to play with. He quotes Rice as saying, much of their learning is similar to what we see with young children. As far as brain size goes, Miller relates the work of Lori Marino from Emory University. She is a cetacean neuroanatomy expert and notes that bottlenose dolphins are the second most encephalized beings on the planet. Now, encephalization means that their brain to body mass ratio is really high, and it's actually higher than any other animals besides humans. Interestingly, they also have larger brains than humans, as noted by Miller. Not only are bottlenose dolphins aware of themselves, they also know each other by name, according to research published in 2013 by Stephanie King et al. In the Proceedings of the Royal Society. Virginia Morell relates the story in Science magazine. Morell notes that scientists have known for 50 years that the dolphins have name-like whistle calls that they would use. But King's study shows conclusively that the dolphins would purposely call out to specific friends of theirs when they were stuck in a net. They did so to reunite with a particular individual after becoming trapped. Morell says it's like calling out to a friend when we get lost, and quotes King as saying, you don't call out your name, you call out the name of your friend. That's how you get back together. Now, along with such high levels of intelligence comes culture. Culture, simply put, is learned behavior, passed on to the next generation. Culture, for a long time, was thought to only be displayed by humans, according to an article published in Science Daily, based off of material from the Max Planck Institute for Evolutionary Anthropology. We are now finding that humans don't have a monopoly on culture. First up are the dolphins of Shark Bay in Australia. James Owen wrote an article for National Geographic News in 2005, which described research showing that mother dolphins would find marine sponge on the seafloor, place it on their beaks, and use it to aid in fishing as a tool. This practice is then taught to the daughters of the dolphins and thus passed down from generation to generation. It's identical to the process humans use when we try to ease our tasks with the use of tools and then we teach our tool use to the next generation. Brandon Keim wrote an article for Wired describing research performed by Michael Crutzen, a biologist of the University of Zurich. In it, Keim notes another form of tool use invented by the same dolphins of Shark Bay. The dolphins would find conch shells and use them to trap fish. It is a relatively new invention, and already the dolphins are teaching each other the method. Neither of these types of tool use are seen in any other dolphin populations. In other words, they have their own culture. Similarly, chimpanzees also show signs of their own culture. In the Science Daily article I noted earlier, chimpanzees near the Ivory Coast use wood and stone tools as hammers to break open nuts. There are two groups of chimps in the area, and while both groups primarily will use the stone tools to open the nuts, only one of the groups switches to using wooden tools once the nuts become easier to open, depending on the season. This makes sense to the one group because wooden tools are easier to find in that area. Both groups could switch to using wooden tools when appropriate, but their cultural differences play a role in preventing it for the one group. Let's turn now to how similar other animals are to us when displaying emotions. I'll give a few simple examples of how this is true. Capuchin monkeys demonstrate a sense of fairness and frustration when treated unfairly. This is demonstrated by research conducted by Sarah Brosnan and Franz de Waal from Emory University. They published their study in the journal Nature in 2003. De Waal has a video of part of their research, which immediately shows a sense of fairness and frustration shown by a capuchin who feels he's being treated unfairly. Now, de Waal first notes how capuchins will accept both grapes and cucumbers as a reward, but they much prefer grapes. If everyone is getting cucumbers, everything is fine. But if a capuchin senses one of his buddies is being granted a superior grape reward, the frustration is evident. I'll show you the clip now and let everyone judge for themselves.
So she gives a rock to us, that's the task. And we give her a piece of cucumber and she eats it. The other one needs to give a rock to us. And she gets a grape. And she eats it. The other one sees that. She gives a rock to us now, gets again cucumber.
Now, at this point, we see the capuchin reacting in an identical way we would expect for a human in a similar situation. And this is not just reserved for our children's behavior. In a related study from Emory University, which included Brosnan and de Waal, Darby Proctor et al. Had this to say. As recent work has shown, non-human primates, particularly chimpanzees and capuchin monkeys, resemble humans in their decisions about cooperation and their aversion to inequitable reward divisions. Now, the inequitable reward divisions is just a fancy way of saying unfairness. Okay, well, most of my talk has been about cetaceans and primates. Even rats display emotions that many of us would probably consider exclusive to humans. That is the emotion of empathy. David Brown reports on a study conducted at the University of Chicago in 2011, which showed that rats would help each other out of cages, even without a reward. The rats wouldn't open empty cages or any cages with objects, but they would typically free their trapped companions and even save some chocolate to share with their newly freed friend. Peggy Mason, who performed the actual experiment, was quoted as saying, "There's nothing in it for them except for whatever feeling they get from helping another individual." This is very similar to how humans act, and we see it all the time. So, we have seen that cetaceans, humans, and other primates are intelligent. We have seen how cetaceans, humans, and other primates show signs of unique culture. And we have seen how many animals, including humans, non-human primates, and even rats, display strong senses of emotion. Now that we have covered just a few of the many examples demonstrating how humans and non-humans are similar, let me conclude with some reflections. Some philosophers and scientists are considering the current appalling circumstances that non-human persons must endure. For example, there are male orcas that sacrifice themselves while being hunted in the wild by humans. They sacrifice themselves in an attempt to save the women and children in their pods. There are cetaceans and chimpanzees who undergo inhumane treatment by being held captive. The list goes on and will continue to grow longer. Similar accounts can be noted from our past when we considered in our arrogance that even some humans were less than people. I have discussed how our non-human companions here on Earth are much closer to us than we previously gave them credit for. We should get on board now with treating non-human persons with the respect they deserve, so as not to commit the mistake of our past when we let our human arrogance lead the way. Thank you.